But yeah, so if you guys have any thoughts or questions on homework and what you kind of do in your classroom, I am always interested to kind of let you or to hear from you guys because I'm going to let you know what are some of my thoughts. Because based on some of these, so many things, there's a couple things that I did in my classroom, and that's where I want to kind of going for this because I'm kind of I wouldn't say conflicted, but I guess my ideas of no, I would say it's like reinforced. Um, because like now I help my daughter like with her own math homework. And she doesn't really have homework where it's like due the next day and stuff like that. But like she has practice, right? And it's given to her. And that she has to like, check her stuff. And I remember there was one time she got like an exit ticket and I'll throw her under the bus. And she got like a really poor grade. I think she got like a 4.5 out of 12, right? I have no idea how it was even graded. But she didn't do bad. And I was like, oh crap. Like, before that, like every single time we'd always check her work and her assessments. Like she was always like doing good, stuff like that. But at least seeing like this one assessment, I was like, oh, okay. So you started like you didn't understand it. You didn't grasp this concept. And unfortunately, it was a math concept, but that's perfectly okay. I don't think any of my offspring or anybody related to me needs to be excellent in math. I don't definitely believe that at all. But anyways, I was like, all right, well, now I need to take control, right? Now as the parent, I need to make sure that like she understands where she made mistakes, and then also I can help reinforce her. And I think that's one of the bigger things that homework can provide, right? Is that reinforcement to not only help students like understand the material, but to make sure that they can get better at something, right? I mean, that's basically what practice is, right? That reinforcement to be able to get better and to make things to be able to improve and like to expand upon your understanding. But I also think that like, sometimes like when we're doing work, like she gets very quickly like overwhelmed. I mean, she's in kindergarten, right? So we say, 30, like just spending 30 minutes is a very, very long time. And so like I can definitely see like how you can definitely go in the exact wrong direction, right? If I like, if I was like one of those parents, I'm like, oh, you're gonna do like 2 hours of like homework every night, and I want you to be like the best, smartest kid in like the class. I mean, she could definitely like um, be very, very upset and like learn to hate math and learn to hate school and learn to hate homework. Right. And there's definitely a lot of students that I know that I taught, were kind of had that upbringing and they kind of, we kind of do things just to appease maybe their parents. Um, but like they grew to like hate it and they grew to hate the work. Um, and I don't think that the purpose of homework is to create that in our students. And I think if we have that in our students, then we have some big issues. I also think it's very important that as far as homework goes, that the grading, and I can't remember, somebody mentioned to this like as far as like not equal to a grade. Um, and like I kind of go back and forth on this. I kind of have a different approach. I'll let you guys know what I did, and you can maybe let me know if you think this was like a good work behind, or maybe like maybe like something better that's you've done or previous teacher has done. But I think it's hard if you don't have any grade for it, and then it's just like, what's the purpose of doing it, right? If you you do have a grade for it, well, then sometimes it's like, sometimes then it can be a negative. Like for instance, like let's say you already know what you're doing, or like you're the Tom Brady. Like, what's really the point of you? Obviously you want to be in practice, showing up practice, but like, do you need to go to preseason, preseason camp and stuff like that? Like, it's this idea of if you already know what you're doing, why do you have to be, why are you going to be penalized if you don't cover with the work? So one thing that, and I think I don't know if I have the right answer. I don't know what the right answer is. But one thing that I did do inside my classroom, and I'll let you guys, I'll talk about the other variations later. But one of my last years, what I did was I had homework. It was required. And I kind of decided that I needed to have homework to be required. That was one of my things where I was like, even if you know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. Like, I want to make sure that you have gone through this so many problems. Now, most of that homework though was like not that much. Like even if you knew what you're doing, I'm not giving you like 30 practice problems. Like you could easily do it in like 15 minutes, especially if you know what you're doing. Like most of the homework I tried to make between 15 and 30 minutes. So I didn't feel bad if it was like boring, busy work because you were a really, really smart student, which again, not the majority of students were at this case. But I did have homework be required. However, here's what I did. It was a grade, and it was a party grade, and it would negatively impact your grade if you didn't do it. However, here's the things I did. One, I recorded me going over the homework. So therefore, and again, like if you're not to push my course, but if you are taking pre-calculus and you want like all those videos of me going over the quizzes, going over the homeworks and all that stuff, like that's in my course, which is in the description. If you're interested or if you need a pre-calculus course, you want to go check it out, feel free to go and check it out. But anyways, I would do the homework. And a lot of times, if you've been watching my channel for a while, like you notice like I was live almost twice a week. And that's what I did. So I would go over my homework on a live stream, record it. And it was inside of my course, which, now I sell. But my students, they would used to like go through it with me. And what I would do is like, so they had the homework. I would print out the PDF. I would upload it into the course. So they had the answers. So they didn't have to watch the video. They could just, literally copy down the answers if they wanted to. And then on top of that, I didn't require the homework to be done the next day because that was one thing I hated when I was a student was like homework had to be do the next day. Like I totally get, and I still tell students, you should do your homework as quickly, as fast as possible. However, I also understood there's some students that like, they just don't understand the homework that day, right? That night. Like it doesn't make sense. Or, they were absent and like that creates a whole big mess. Like when is your homework due? Then you got to keep track of who was absent, why they were absent, blah, blah, blah. Like I hated that as a teacher. So I decided, you know what? Forget that. I don't care if you're absent, whatever else. Like I'm not worried about your homework being due, since it's been given to you. And then, I was going to mention something else, but I hated it being due the next day. I can't remember if there was whatever else. So either way. So what I did though, was I decided that like, I'm like, all right, you already have the answers. You already have a video recording of this, right? Oh, some students didn't understand. Like they just needed more time to understand the material, right? So I'm like, all right, I'll give you more time to understand the material. Oh, and this is what I was thinking. Then other times, like I remember like I had wrestling meets, right? Or I had baseball games and like, yeah, I could do the homework, right? But sometimes it would just be like so much was on my plate to get done, right? And I remember like I would like do whatever I had to do to get like my homework done, but it was like usually like copying some extra problems off a student, or something like that. Like I never really took it seriously. I just needed to get it done to get the grade. And I didn't want students to just do their homework just to get the grade, right? I wanted students to to do the homework to make sure they had a better understanding and to refine that understanding. So what I did was I decided that, all right, you can do your homework. I want you to do your homework the next day. I will check it. And I would check it. I would walk around, try to every day, like check to see if you had your homework done, I'd check it off. And that gave me like a mental understanding if you did your homework, which was kind of important because you kind of knew what students were doing their homework, what students weren't doing their homework. Obviously, like I mentioned, like here or there, like there's students that wouldn't do it time to time. That's fine. But you kind of knew, like, especially by this time in the year, you knew what students were doing their homework and what students weren't, right? And you knew what students were struggling, what students were not struggling. So, so what I said though was like all homework had to be due, or at least from that side, had to be due on the quiz day. That was like my deadline. Like you had to have your due by the quiz day, obviously, except for like weird absences. Like your homework had to be due on the quiz day. And so basically then that's what I would do is I'd give you a grade for your homework on that quiz day. And it was kind of like a combination, usually be like 3 to 4 assignments, for due 3 to 4 assignments was that like quiz grade, or not quiz grade, was like your homework grade. And what I liked about it was, it gave students time if they weren't understanding the material, or if they had like a volleyball game, or they're absent, like they had plenty of time to do the homework to get it done. But it also kind of like made students do it because they obviously there was a deadline and it was worth a grade. And if they didn't do it, like their grade would be fine. Now, again, could they bypass the system? Of course. Could they just write down all of my answers? Of course. Right. So students did cheat. They did copy it down. But here's the cool thing. It was really easy to tell the students that cheated. Really easy. Because one, I would check their homework. Like I visually would check it. And I kind of knew what I knew what my work looked like. And I knew if they actually did it. I knew what like Sally did it, how Sally did her homework, and then how Joe did it. And I knew that like they were friends. And then you could easily see like their homework would look exactly the same. Like teachers are not stupid. It's pretty easy to, to tell these certain things. Now, obviously, most of the time I would give students the benefit of the doubt. But again, like, here's the thing, guys. And like, here's the thing also I started thinking about, like GPT. Like students like, oh, like this is gonna be awesome. Like I can cheat on all my homework. And I was like, you know what? I've been allowing students to cheat on their homework like for years now. Like I'm not worried about chat GPT. Like who cares? Like go home, go and do your homework. Like have your homework cheat. Like you already have photo math. You have Mathway, you have Brainly. Like you have all the answers are already available. So like I'm not worried about another AI like helping you with math. Like if you want to cheat, cheat. Like go for it. Good for you. Like we know that's not going to serve you any later in life. And it might give you the quick grade. But guess what? Here's the thing that I liked about giving students the answers is one, it allowed them to understand the material, to check their work, right? I think that's really, really important. If you're just doing homework and you're not sure if it's correct or not, like what's the point of doing it, right? I mean, what is really the point if you don't even know if you're doing it correctly or not? So I think really having the ability to get the answers, also having the video recording, I think was really helpful for some students. Some students, unfortunately had to see me in class and then watch the videos at home. But I always thought it was helpful for them. And then, but like the thing is like, it wasn't worth a whole bunch of their grade. I mean, it was roughly less than, I usually try to be like homework, if I remember correctly, was like only about 10% of their grade. So 10 to 12% of the grade. So like if you were at like a rounding error, or like right around that like 88%, it would get you to the 90, right? But it wasn't enough to like, you could fail all your testing quizzes and then end up with a B, just because you had your homework done, which I already gave you the answers. So, it wasn't that big of a deal. And I thought this was beneficial because, one, it didn't extremely penalize those students that didn't really want to do their homework at all, like those really, really smart students. I mean, again, it wasn't that much of homework. But again, I know there's some students who are like, I'm not doing this. Like, I already know how to do this. I'm not even going to do it. Well, that's fine. I mean, if you had an A, you had an A. But, maybe if you had like a 90%, that might have dropped you down to an 88. And I'm not sure if that was the best. I'm not sure if that was the best way to approach it, but I still kind of feel like it was. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting take because you want to make sure your grade is assigned to what the student understands, not their ability to just do the work that you ask, like to turn in your homework and stuff like that, or turn in your homework on time, right? You shouldn't get a B because you couldn't turn your homework in on time. At least I don't think that's what the grade should be applied. But I think there is something that's like very, very powerful and very important about like doing the homework, making sure the homework is done, making sure it's done correctly, and making sure it is done before you take the quiz. Like, what's the point of not doing your homework? What's the point of not doing your homework? Or what's the point of doing your homework after you've taken an assessment on it? Like, that makes no sense, right? I mean, I would rely a lot of students to do like retakes and stuff like that, but like, for like testing quizzes, they were allowed to, but for homework, it was like, no, I mean, once the deadline is there, like you gotta do the homework, right? That is what your prep is for that test. So if students didn't do the homework, they would drop their grade. But again, like I didn't want homework to be that much. A lot of students, I remember students used to like, students wanted homework to be worth a lot of money, or not a lot of money, but a lot of points. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, if it's worth so many points, like one, you could not know anything and get a good grade. But in the same respect, I always thought it was like unfair to penalize a student if they didn't do the homework, but they knew what they were doing, and you dropped them down that way, right? I think it's a double-edged sword. So I usually came up, I think around like 12%, 10 to 15 was usually where I laid. It all depends. Every semester was a little bit different. Some semesters had more homework than others. But I always try to get like that 12, 13% of your grade to be around homework. And I always thought that was as fair as I could be. And I don't know, you guys can tell me what you kind of feel is a fair percentage of your grade. But I always felt like the 12 to 13 was, kind of the best. Let me just kind of go back through. I would say,